our own needs. So the Torah comes around and is l'zachos is to refine and purify, is to raise our desires to a higher level. That's what I was saying before. How do you improve your desires or raise your desires? So that's this. How do you l'zachos es Yisrael? How do you purify and elevate our desires? Is by understanding, is also by litzaref, is when we combine, we change those desires into a desire to be a unity, to be one. So all of the Torah's purpose of all the commandments and the mitzvos and the study of the Torah is to change that orientation, is l'zachos es Yisrael. And the more we think about that, then the more we can benefit from the essential process, that engine that's behind the Torah and the commandments. So I'm going to get back to this, but I just want to talk a little bit some general ideas. So we talked about how the goal of is to change these desires to become a unity, to become a whole. And most of us are taught, we're all taught, that that nature is basically selfish. We're taught that everything is about survival of the fittest. That's what we're taught. It's absolutely wrong. It's a total lie. And we've been misled, we've been lied to, and it's affected us on every way. It's affected our sense of meaning in our lives. It's affected the way we understand life and the world. It's an absolute lie. That is not the orientation of nature. The orientation of nature, of the world that we live in, is not about survival of the fittest. It's not about selfishness. It's a big lie.
Selfish. I'm a student of the Rambam.
What's that?
I'm a student of the Rambam, representing him here tonight. And Aristotle.
You look a little bit like him, actually.
My family's from Cordoba, actually. The point is, why do you associate selfishness with? I see where you're going with this, but why do you say selfish for survival of the fittest?
Well, behind the survival of the fittest is all part and parcel of selfishness. That's survival of the fittest.
There's two healthy babies.
It's all about brute force.
There's two healthy babies, and one's stronger than the other. Is one more selfish than the other because one is physically stronger?
But if they capitalize on it and take advantage of it, then there's ultimate selfishness, of course.
They're children.
Yeah, but as adults, they act the same. We act the same way, and because we believe that that's what the world is really about. It's really, and the world still operates like that. We're basically taught that it's the me first attitude and approach, and we learn this from the way we understand what the world is. We think the world is about. And that's survival of the fittest, and that it's all about it's all about the individual racing ahead. That's not the way nature works.
Well, it eliminates
it's a total lie.
Flow. When you talk about that, it eliminates the idea of flow. You might have one in certain limited aspects being stronger, one weaker. But that engages a flow. If everything was equal, there'd be no flow. And part of nature is that we have this flow going on.
Right, but in order to, what nature really is interested in on the highest level is wholeness and a complete ecosystem where everything is in balance in relationship to the environment in such a way that it works in unity with the environment, so that both the collective organisms and the environment grow to higher levels and orders of organization and development.
Symbiosis.
yeah, symbiosis, but it's even more than that. It's symbiosis between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom and bacteria and the environment as a whole, so that it all grows to the highest and highest level.
I wonder if I can ask the room, let the doctor speak for another 20 minutes and hold your questions and comments.
How much
for
time do
20
we have?
You have
Thank
9, 10,
you.
it's 10 after 9, but I'd like for you to go to a nice stretch.
Yeah.
So
20 minutes, hold the comments and questions later.
now
That's okay.
I'll give you an example. So we're taught the opposite. We're taught it's all about survival of the fittest. It's all about the individual. That's not the way the world works. The world works as one interconnected whole. Now, at the beginning of our evolution, there was this competitive edge and nature. For example, at the beginning of evolution, there was bacteria, just bacteria, unicell organisms, right? And they proliferated all over the world in competition with each other. Absolutely. But as the world evolved, the bacteria learned what their real nature is, that like hydrogen and oxygen, that when they get together, they can create a community, a bigger organism that is much greater than any individual bacteria can be on its own. That's the way bacteria developed. That's the way the the plant kingdom developed, and that's the way the animal kingdom developed. It reached a point of evolution where the essential nature of nature has begun to emerge, and that is not the lie of survival of the fittest, but that the best way to evolve is to be living in cooperation, is to being interconnected, to living in fellowship with everyone else and every other organism and that you share an environment with. And this happens not only like on an individual level, let's say on a different plant species, plant kingdom or animal kingdom, but also how they all integrate, how the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom and ultimately the human kingdom, but we haven't yet reached that level of evolution, integrates as a complex whole, as one interconnected whole, where the whole, again, is more than the sum of its parts, recapitulating the same message that hydrogen and oxygen teach us, and the same message of the Torah. The missing element is the human element. In order to make the world function perfectly as a whole, to reach the messianic state, the days of Mashiach, is the only component that's not working, that's not doing its job, is the human element. Because we have not learned yet to change our desires for ourselves to focus more on the desires of the whole. For example, we need to learn to become more like the cells of our body. Every cell in our body is primarily focusing on the consciousness and the needs of the whole organism, of the whole body. The deeper mind of every cell in our body is the awareness that that cell has of the needs of the entire body. And it only receives the bare minimum that it needs so that it can continue to participate in this collective wholeness. Because it knows in its deeper mind that when it participates in this collective wholeness, in giving everything it can to the rest of the body, it benefits as well. Because now it's part of a bigger organism and a much greater mind, a much greater state of being. So isn't it worth it for those individual cells to turn on to a higher consciousness that is contained in the cell's consciousness, to think about the needs of every other cell in the body? Of course it is. It's a higher level of being. Cancer cells are stupid, the ultimate in stupidity. And I really believe that the message of cancer today is not that when someone gets cancer, God forbid, it's in any sign of any deficiency or weakness or spiritual issue at all. No, the contrary. It's a message for us to learn about what life is really about, what the world is really about, what our lives are supposed to be about, and how we are supposed to relate to others and to the world in general, to create a collective whole that is way beyond the individual parts. That's how the body behaves, and that's how the animal kingdom behaves, and that's how the world behaves. It's a lie to think that survival of the fittest characterizes nature. And we teach this nonsense to kids to basic biology in elementary school, and then we perpetuate the lie in high school, and then we enlarge the lie in college, and it's all based on a fallacy, on very limited knowledge, a very, very small way of thinking. And I said this last week about you can use this knowledge, this way of thinking in understanding how the immune system works. Another lie that we're taught is that the immune system is oriented in self versus non-self. If anyone studied a little bit of biology, how does the immune system think according to the geniuses who are teaching us about life? Well, it tries to distinguish itself, from the foe. Self versus others, self versus non-self. And anything that it considers it's not non-self, it tries to destroy. That's not the way the immune system works. That's the way Nixon thought when he waged the war against cancer 40, 50 years ago, in thinking that there's a war going on, and that if we're stronger, we'll be able to destroy cancer. That's not the message of cancer. The message is, and it's not the message of the immune system, it's not the way the immune system works. The immune system is not thinking self versus non-self. It's thinking about integration and wholeness and unity so that everything works as a whole in the best way, making the best use of the environment so that both itself and the environment can reach higher levels of health and healing. If the immune system is thinking only self versus non-self, it's going to have a real hard job, because there are more foreign cells in our body than there are our own cells in our body. Even in our skin alone, there are more foreign cells than there are our own cells. So is the immune system really thinking of self versus non-self? It's going to have a really hard time. Additionally, there are more bacteria in our gut